Alright team, this is a walkthrough of the F6 plugin. The F6 is a dynamic EQ, so the Q6 is just a regular EQ, but the F6 is a dynamic EQ. The difference is that this one is designed to work as EQ, like the Q6, but also what we will be using it for is just dynamic, not regular EQ. The reason we're doing that is it's easier to make overall tonal changes without having to think about dynamics, without having to think about whether this is going to be a constant curve right here or whether it's going to change with the overall volume of this frequency. That's what a dynamic EQ does. With the F6, we've set it up so that we're getting the signal ready, making it sound like it should overall with the Q6, and then with the F6, if there's particular harsh spots as someone gets louder or changes their sound or something like that, the F6 can easily take care of that in those contexts. So we're going to play a clip of Jelani here from the Christmas 9 a.m. service, Christmas song here, and we'll dive into it a little bit. You will see an RTA pop up here. That's a graph of what the audio is doing. Don't rely too much on that. It's a way to see kind of what's happening, but peaks don't necessarily, you'll see what I mean once it turns on. Peaks don't necessarily mean a problem. It might just mean that's the note he's singing, and you'll see it move as his voice changes. But they are a signal that there could be a problem, and we'll test that as we move things around here. I'll show you how to do that. So here's the clip. I'm going to slow this averaging down just so we can see it better. So it's overall pretty even so far. I can tell that there's a little bit of a frequency build up here though, and I'll show you what that sounds like. This is Christ the King. Right there. So that's going to get in the way of the band, but I don't want to just cut it. I don't want to cut it because it will thin his voice. It will make him sound a little bit thinner. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a dynamic frequency. And I've already set these up for Robin's voice. I'm just copying this to Jelani's. So I'm going to just tweak it so it doesn't come into play yet. I'm going to show you how to set it. So I'm turning this band on. I've already found this band. You can hear when he goes to the chorus here. Right there is the note. So I'm going to bring the gain to 0 because I don't want to use this as EQ. I'm already EQing in the Q6. But I'm going to adjust this threshold so it just barely reacts when he starts to push. When he starts to push dynamically, it just barely is ever so slightly carving that out. And the speed of that cutout is set here like you would set a compressor. Usually a moderate value is a safe speed for a vocal. So the threshold is where it reacts, at what level, and then range is how much it reacts. So I'm going to just dramatically cut it out here so you can hear a more dramatic example of it. What child is this who lay to rest on Mary? Here his vocal got thin. So it thinned out his voice, which would effectively make him less present in the mix. So we're just going to use just a little bit, 4 dB max in this case. And it's just going to gently pull that out. Maybe 5 dB is the ticket here. Yeah, that sounds good. The other thing is if he has a boomy frequency, if he did down here, we could do the same thing. And I'm actually going to do something interesting with this. I said I'm not going to use it as EQ. In this case, I am. I don't always recommend this, but because of the warmth in his voice, I want to accentuate the warmth, but as he gets louder, I want it to duck down back to normal. So if I set this band here and just boost him just a little bit and widen the Q so it's a wider range, I can set the threshold and range. See how when he gets louder, it gets back to normal, but it warms up his voice a little bit. That's a cool feature. Not necessary, but a cool thing to do if you're comfortable with it. And then he also has a slightly harsher frequency up here. I think it's up here somewhere. So it's roughly right there. We're going to set that back to 0. And start to just tame that just a little bit. Widen it slightly so it's a gentle EQ. Maybe move it up just a little bit. Yep. Take it back to 0 on the gain so it's flat. This is Christ the King, whom shepherds guard and angels sing. Haste, haste to bring him, Lord, the babe. So without, sounds good. But there's a few tonal things that we can clean up a little bit with this F6. Whom angels greet with anthems sweet, while shepherds watch their keeping. Very helpful. I'm going to stop it real quick just to go through a few things here. So I wouldn't normally recommend that you do this here. I would normally recommend that you do it in the Q10. Now we've already taken out a little bit above where, in the Q10, above where that frequency is, but you see that this high pass is starting to affect a little bit that region that we're boosting in the F6. I may choose to go back and lower the high pass a little bit and tighten this Q here of the second band that's a muddy frequency in his voice, and then bring this just slightly back to 0. And it pretty much will do the same thing. What child is this who lay to rest on Mary's lap? So you can see it's a little bit warmer than it was before we started without a boost here, and with this cut more. And you may find things like that, like as you start adding plugins, you may have to make adjustments on previous ones, but it's always best to start with EQ, then add, say, a dynamic EQ if you're going to, or dynamics afterwards. Because those dynamic processors will be affected by your EQ. So I hope that helps. I didn't go into everything on the F6, but hopefully that's a good method for the practice of using it. Waves does have really good manuals on how to use or what the features are on these. They don't necessarily have a manual on how to use it, but there are also a lot of YouTube videos on how to use all of these features. If you want to dive into it, I would recommend using it just like I did here, with just a few bands that are slightly reacting to harsher or muddy frequencies in the voice.